Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I'm your host as always, Jeff Stormer, and this week on the show, I am joined by James D'Amato for a game of Time to Face the Strange. One of the games spotlighted in James's new book, The Ultimate RPG Game Master's World Building Guide, Prompts and Activities to Create and Customize Your Own Game World. You probably know James from the One Shot podcast, a podcast about playing one-shots in as many different game systems as possible, a format that should be familiar to you if you enjoy Party of One, if you've listened to the show before, because 6 years ago when I started the show, I blatantly stole the format from One Shot. Or you probably know him as the producer and game master of Campaign Skyjacks. But for the purposes of our sit-down game today, he is the author of the Ultimate RPG Game Master's World Building Guide, a book all about world building exercises and mini-games and questions and prompts and worksheets and things to help you build out a world for you to play your games in, which is exactly what we did today. Time to Face the Strange is a world-building game about technological innovations. Players create technological informations based on card prompts and pulling cards out of a circle, similar to a game of King's Cup, answer questions about how those technological innovations change the world. If the circle is broken at any point, a doomsday event occurs and a countdown clock starts until something catastrophic happens that will end the world. The game was a delight. I love playing it, and I really truly just loved sitting down with a good friend and just creating a world, something that if you've listened to All My Fantasy Children, and if you haven't, you should listen to All My Fantasy Children, you should know is something that is very near and dear to my heart. So this was a really special game and something that was really fun to just kind of sit down and do and breeze through. And so I really think that you're going to love listening to it. You can find more information about the Ultimate RPG Game Master's World Building Guide, as well as all of James's other projects in the show notes. Now, I do have one content note before we dive in. This episode does deal in themes of institutional oppression with a particular eye towards institutionalized ableism. And the back half of the episode deals with marginalized people rising up to fight that institutional oppression. Just know that that is the content that is coming up in the story, and listener discretion is advised. With that said, let's go ahead and throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, past me. This week on the show, I am joined once again by my good friend, James D'Amato. James, thank you so much for coming back on Party of One.
Hello, heroes, and thank you, Present Jeff. I'm so excited to be here. We haven't been together on Party of One in a long time.
This is true.
This, it feels familiar, it feels comfortable, it feels friendly.
I'm excited. That's the vibe that we're going for, and I'm excited that we can deliver that. I'm excited that we can make that happen. I'm ready to play a fun game, but before we do that, why don't you take a moment and introduce our lovely listeners at home, both to what we are playing this week, as well as anything else that you've got going on that you might want them to know about.
A sure thing. You might recognize me as James D'Amato, the host of the One Shot podcast and the Campaign Skyjacks podcast. I have worked with Jeff over the many years on different podcasting projects. Very recently, he and Aaron got together and helped develop my beloved world of Sphere that we use for Skyjacks. I highly recommend everyone check that out. However, we're not here to talk about me today in my capacity as a podcaster, because I'm also an author of what I consider RPG accessory books. These are not role-playing games unto themselves. They are books that you can use to enhance and underscore your experience as a role player. However, they do have games within them. The book that we are going to be diving into this week is the Ultimate RPG Game Master's World Building Guide. And what that is a book full of prompts, exercises, and mini games to help make the process of developing settings for your role-playing games more fun and easy to do. And specifically from that book, we are going to be playing an exercise meant to help you develop settings for the sci-fi genre called Time to Face the Strange. This is a card-driven minigame where we're going to be exploring changes that technology makes to a setting over time through different lenses. So we're going to discover some technological innovations and then draw prompts from a deck of cards to see how those technological innovations alter the setting that we're working with.
I'm here for it. I'm excited about it. I'm rip-roaring and ready to go. I think this is going to be really, really fun. So talk us through what the game is going to look like. Let's go ahead and dive in.
All right, so we are going to be using a standard deck of playing cards, and I've arranged that deck of playing cards face down in a circle, kind of the way you would arrange a deck of playing cards if you wanted to play a game of King's Cup. And throughout the game, first we are each going to draw 2 cards from that deck to determine what kind of technological innovation we want to examine. And then after that, we are going to pull cards from that deck to find out the sometimes surprising changes that those technological innovations have on society itself. And through that, where we're just going to explore how the world is different, how things have progressed. If at any time we pull a card from our deck and that breaks the circle, like in King's Cup, a terrible tragedy will occur. And that is we start a doomsday clock. For whatever reason, the technological innovation that we have and the societal changes that technological innovation has caused are going to bring about an apocalyptic circumstance. And we'll find out how much time we have to hopefully mitigate the damage that apocalyptic circumstance causes. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple, but I think you'll agree that you using our creativity as the beautiful creative geniuses that we are, we're going to get some really cool setting stuff.
I think so. I think we're gonna build something really, really cool. So the first thing that I want to pitch is that this is all clowns. And the innovation that we're making is mascot suits. The first clown to put on a mascot suit. All right. We are in our world. We are introducing technological innovations into our world that are going to change the face of that world forever. This is going to take it into a sci-fi space, and I am very, very excited about it. You have laid out your cards in a circle. So what's the first thing that we do? Do we have to decide on an innovation, or is there a tool to decide that for us?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked, Jeff, because we also pull cards to decide what innovations that we're working with. So I am going to draw 4 cards. I'm going to draw 2 for you. I'm going to draw 2 for me. And then we're going to see and decide what those innovations are.
Okay.
I want you to know that I got mildly close to breaking the circle already. So
good.
Just the appearance of some of these could have destroyed everything. And I'm going to lay them out. I have a piece of paper here. So first thing I'm going to do is flip over your first card. Your first card is the 10 of diamonds. And diamonds have to do with innovations in the transportation industry. And for 10, this is a new type of power or fuel for a popular type of transportation. Now, would you like to see what your other innovation is first, or do you want to decide what this might be?
Give me the other one first. I've got something cooking, but I want to see if the other card bounces against it in a fun or interesting way.
Okay, so the next card was the Jack of Hearts, which is a medical innovation. And for medicine, we have a treatment or medicine that completely changes the mortality rate for a common type of injury or illness. Oh, no. And I've drawn mine as well.
All right.
And I drew a Joker for the first one. It is a red Joker or a colored Joker, depending on how you look at Jokers from different decks. So I can choose either to have this be medicine or transportation based. And yeah, this will help you make some decisions here.
Okay, good.
Because what I have here. It could have been a new disease or syndrome or malady becomes a major threat to a large population. I feel like we've had enough of that.
I'm okay with that. That actually is on my list of lines, is plagues and pandemics, so I think we'll go in the other direction.
This book was written pre-2020. I will point that out. So I'm going to pop over to the transportation option, which is a scarce resource or new environmental condition makes a type of transportation completely impossible. I am going to say, Jeff, no more airplanes.
No more airplanes.
We can't do airplanes. It is a interesting thing. I think that Oh, airplanes, whatever jet fuel there was, the visible particulate that it puts in the air, we just found out is like time release extremely bad. We couldn't have known about this before. And in a shocking display of like competence and responsibility, world governments go, hey, I know air travel is extremely convenient, but no, we just can't do it anymore.
Okay, so here's my pitch. The mode of transportation is really a staple of the modern transportation industry. I think everybody knows it. Everybody who hasn't relied on it at some point. I'm of course talking about moon boots.
Yes, the humble moon boot.
Yeah, the moon boot. There's been a material developed, sort of a flubber situation that was developed that allows moon boots to, rather than jump, a few inches and then you go, oh, this was fun. It propels you potentially hundreds of miles in an instant.
Okay, so Jeff, are you telling me that we have a new transportation system that is an individual traveler system that bounces people, Halo style, or I guess
yes.
just first person shooter style, just like propels people over large distances? This isn't a vehicle of some kind that they're being propelled in. This is individual person wearing specialized boots.
I believe it is an individual person wearing specialized boots, and the other two things that I want to throw out, the other two details that I want to counteract that with, is a series of nets or sticky pads. That like, we have airports, we have the space for these sort of fly catcher situations. So you just, and the other thing is a medical thing. We have figured out. The easy part was building the flubber. The flubber was the easy part. You just build a strong enough rubber that you sort of super ball someone a long distance. The much harder innovation was to make it so that isn't just an immediate death sentence.
Yeah. Yep.
So
okay. I want to change.
The common source of mortality is gigantic super jump related falling deaths.
Yeah, I'm going to change mine a little bit. Airplanes were not taken out of the picture because of anything to do with the fuel or environment at all. It is an environmental condition. It's that these moon boots became so popular that airplanes were just a hazard in the air because people on moon boot jumps were getting hit by airplanes. That's how frequent and popular moon boot jumps are. So yeah, they're just like, well, we'll look at the airline industry. We look at these moon boots. Nobody's flying on planes. Everybody's using these moon boots. Get these planes out of here. It's Moon Boot City, baby.
Well, there was and admittedly there was a bit of a PR fiasco. It really was a blow to the airline industry and also a boon to the moon boot industry, because there was a jumper who took off, collided with the window of the front window of an airplane. The airplane started to go down, but because everyone on board had bought a pair of moon boots for recreation, they were able to all leap to safety while the plane was going down.
Perfect.
So there were no casualties, there were no harms, just a ton of people flying through the air on their moon boots.
That's great. I love this. The other thing that I have here is I pulled a 9 of spades, which is for communication, which tells me that there is a new essential device for modern communication. And Clamp had a series, which the name is going to escape me, where there were just like android robot people, Chobits, that's it. Clamp did the Chobits comic, where there were Persicoms, but I really liked the small sized Persicoms that like looked like little fairies or imps or whatever, that were basically sapient human assistant devices. They're kind of like smartphones that are little robots with fun, rambunctious personalities. I am going to say that we have the small size Persicoms. We just have like these, they work just like our cell phones and whatnot, but they are fun little people with their own little personalities, and they do all the things a smartphone does. So why on earth would you have a smartphone instead of one of these cute little bad boys?
Can I name them?
Yes, please.
Can they be called co-pilots because their primary initial form of development was like providing essential navigation and updates for people who are flying mid moon boot.
Yes. I like they can like one of the things, the early innovations, they can like grab you by the scruff of your shirt or maybe a specialized harness that you have for your moon boot jumps, and they can steer you a little bit. So like really, maybe their hair or ears like flop out to help steer as well. Like obviously, as moon boots grew in popularity, clearly there was a call for synergy between these devices.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
So now let's see. You gave us the new fuel, so now we need to know a common type of. There's a new treatment for a common malady that has completely changed the mortality rate.
this is directly tied to the rise of the moon boot, which is admittedly and the first major world change that I need to establish, and this is extremely important that you and I talk this through and understand the gravity of what I'm about to say. And that is that the trad role-playing game industry is crushed, is destroyed, because injuries related to falling have been wiped out.
Oh, wow.
Medical treatments related to falling injuries, falling damages of all kinds have been removed from the table.
We are straying dangerously close into defining societal changes before we actually get into drawing those cards. However, I absolutely will accept that younger generations simply have no context for deaths by falling. It doesn't make sense to them.
Role-playing game designers are looking at their work and screaming because they're like, I wrote so many pages of falling damage rules.
Yeah. And literally anyone who is like 23 and younger cannot understand why someone would be hurt by falling. They literally cannot. There's flubbers just everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We still people just don't die from falling anymore is kind of what I'm hearing. The treatment that we have for like impact, I guess it's more than falling though. It's got to be impact injuries.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So now this treatment I don't think is related to flubber, because the idea is like the injuries can still happen, but the treatment that we have for it is so robust that there's no mortality rate.
Yeah, I love the idea. That actually makes it even better for me, is the idea of that we have developed such profound, like the ability to like set a bone or replace a bone or like repair these things is so quick that like if you have an injury, like if you fall down the stairs, like you could press a button and be up and running by the end of the day.
Okay.
Like if you fall out of a window, like you're like it is a. Let me think. What do I want this to be? What do I want the treatment to be?
I have a pitch. Could it be like the Saiyan regeneration tank or back to tank from Star Wars, where you just sort of hang out in floating like goo for a while and then you're good?
I like that a lot.
So then this suggests to me that like if this is like impact injuries are really a thing of the past, I think what it means is not only are these like very good at setting your bones and whatnot, if you have a living cell left in your system after a traumatic accident, these tanks can get you back from just that. So like that's got to be how robust it is, because impact deaths like generally kill people pretty quickly. So the idea that like they might be dead on sight, but if you can get them into one of these tanks before the end of the day, you're probably good. So
you're probably fine. Depending on the severity of the death and the amount that it has to repair, it might take variable amounts of time. That way we can get some good filler episodes of you in the tank while the other characters go hunting for the Dragon Balls. We get that arc, it's fun.
Oh, Jeff, I have bad news. I think the trad role-playing game industry still does have a foot in the door, because this is a annoying healing system that takes you out of the action for a very long period of time.
It is.
That's their bread and butter. That's their bread and butter.
It really was a pretty simple pivot, frankly. That those pages are filled pretty quick.
Do we have a name for our healing tank here?
They are called put together pods.
Put together pods. I love it.
Because they put you back together.
All right, so now we have defined our technology, and for each of these, we are going to pull 4 societal changes that result from this technology being invented. Some of those changes are going to be very surprising for us. I'm going to pull all 4 of those innovations for each card right now. I will let you know when and if a doomsday clock is started because of that. But I will be right back after pulling those cards.
All right.
We did get a doomsday clock. I love it.
All right. I'm excited.
We'll address that when we come to it. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense that it would be on the Joker's innovation. Okay, cool. So now we just get to pull cards and see how these innovations change the world. And let's start with our moon boots here. The first major societal change that comes out of moon boots is a 6 of diamonds. Diamonds represent economic changes. And the 6 is... it requires employers from just about every industry to change their structure. So moon boots are super popular. Everybody has a pair of moon boots.
Everybody's jumping from place to place.
Yeah. Does this mean, like, we already live in a world where work from home is common. What if offices and physical plants still exist, they need a moon boot recreation area? Like, there's literally no way you're going to get your employees to show up to work unless you've got a place for them to jump around in their moon boots.
And also, I mean, it's gonna push the work from home. The theoretical around like work from home is that it opens up the hiring pool to people from outside of the thing, and the way that employers have remained shitty about this is by saying, well, we still need people to come into the office sometimes, so we're not actually going to really open up our hiring pool. If somebody could just jump to your office, well, then that actually puts a tremendous amount of power back into the hands of the worker, who can be like, you can no longer argue that I can't make it to the office. I have a pair of moon boots. I can be there in like 20 minutes.
Or even like employers that like, oh no, we are requiring people to come to the office. We do still need people to come to the office. Employees go, well, that's fine, but you need to have a net system to catch me when I commute in on my moon boots. And if you can't provide that, you can't require me to work in the office.
Yeah, I like it. My brain always goes to, how can we use this to start a global labor revolution? And this feels like a powerful tool in the hands of the workers to efficiently and cleanly and environmentally friendly shut down the idea of like, well, if we have the tools to give you a comfortable work-life balance and we're going to choose not to use it. It offers that ability to be like, no, I can checkmate your arbitrary demands with my moon boots.
Like whatever the moon boot corporation's lobby is, like obviously it's more powerful than the airline industry, as they did destroy the airline industry. And, we kind of used that devil to our advantage here. And they're like, well, yeah, it's great that people should be required to have a catchment system if they want people to come into the office, because that means people are going to be building more moon boot catchment systems. And the trade-off there is now pretty much 90% of industries have a work from home, really, unless you're in manufacturing.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I love the idea that this has prompted like further innovations in the catchment systems, right? Like I think at first they were these very giant, like I described them as like fly paper that you were then sort of like pulled down from. I think that like it being widespread means not everybody can just have like a 30-story strip of fly paper above their office. So we start to see things like safely pulling you down via tractor beams and things like
beam
that.
Is exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, like these things start to become commonplace. You get like a metal harness that like is pulled down on a beam of light, like, and it makes it, ironically, it just furthers the spread of this as like both a like long distance transport, but also just like the way that you get from place to place is like if my grocery store has a little beam on it, I can just jump across town, and it furthers the idea that like you just go where you go, like, you know, you can just get where you're going very quickly and efficiently.
Love this. Let's move on to the innovation that we get from the put together pod. And this is a 2 of spades. Spades represent personal changes for society. And the 2 of spades is, this takes the lives of many people, causing a shared trauma for a generation. This is a big oof.
This is a big oof for the put together pod. It's sort of counter to the mission of the pod.
But hey, we've lived in this world long enough. We know that's actually not uncommon for a new medical innovation to come out, and then maybe it's not as great as we first thought, and we kind of have to deal with the fallout of that. So what do we think happened with the put together pod?
So I had a visual in my head immediately when we started talking about the idea that, like, if one cell survives, it can be rebuilt. And the phrasing of the card is very specific, and I'm going to peel back the curtain and talk about the visual that I have in my head, and that is a DC Comics superhero by the name of Slobo. Slobo is not dead. Slobo is Lobo's son. Slobo is born because Lobo loses an arm. He has the ability to regenerate like Deadpool, but when he loses that arm grows into a Lobo, and that becomes his teenage son. So what I'm imagining here is, like, if even is the card says it takes the lives, I don't think that I'm taking that as not meaning that it directly kills people. I'm saying that now we have a clone crisis.
Ooh.
We have a doppelganger crisis unfolding. There's a lot of like, well, there were enough residual cells in the thing. We took you out. Unfortunately, like, we didn't immediately dispose of this put together fluid, and now there's another you. Like, now there's another you, and watch out, because
I'm going to say this is an almost perfect replication of the people that have been cloned, because, like, obviously, if you're going to be rebuilt from a single cell and then be fine, you need to have all of your memories and experiences. Like, that's something that they sorted out in the pod. This does mean, like, when we read takes the lives of many people, causing a shared trauma for a generation, maybe that shared trauma rests exclusively with the clones, in that they believe they've had this whole life, but now they're being told that they're a clone. I don't think our society is cruel enough that we just kill the clones, even though our society clearly is, if you've been living in our world for long enough.
Right.
In this better world, we don't just dispose of the clones. Instead, it's like, well, you've got this generation of clones that don't have the lives that they remember, but do still kind of have to find some way to live on. So yeah, there's this whole generation of clones, and I think eventually this gets fixed about the put together pod. But it's a problem for long enough that there is a not insignificant portion of the population that's just these clones.
You just have a clone, and the thing is like, you have, if all of your memories are intact, what is really like tapping into the horror of it, and like I think the trauma that extends onto the cloned in addition to the clones. Imagine if tomorrow, with all of your memories intact, you found out you had a clone. Like, it was like, oh, by the way, there's another James, and like you have no memory of this person who has every single one of your memories. But like, there is still that association of like, we are not only related, but like, we are in a lot of ways the same person. So there's that sort of weird psycho horror of like I don't have any connection with you, but you are also my literal clone. I don't know, like,
and when we fall in love,
that is such a
there's going to be a lot of problems, just a lot of problems.
A lot of problems come from that. Come from that.
Definitely, that's on my agenda. So I will say, as we move on to the next thing, this does come from the no planes situation, and specifically, there are no planes because there are too many people jumping around in the air with their moon boots. I want us to keep that in mind because I did draw the next card, and that was the card that set off our doomsday clock.
Good.
So this will be somehow the reason that the world starts to end, connected to these things. This is a spade. Once again, this is a personal change. 10 of spades. This changes the dynamic of interpersonal engagement for individuals with disabilities. Okay. We unintentionally have created a society that is so much more hostile to people with disabilities than really any society has been before. With transportation, we've retrofitted the world for a system of transportation that, most disabilities, I think this is going to be a big problem for these moon boots. And now the sky is full of people zipping around in their moon boots. I think this is a really difficult new paradigm for folks with disabilities. And because I think our society is going to double down on enabling these, the moon boot lobby has got to be so strong, which I think deals probably a devastating blow to legal protections like the ADA on a global scale. I think society gets much worse, especially because there is the attitude with a lot of physical disabilities, not even physical mobility disabilities, a lot of disabilities generally is, well, put together pot, we'll fix that, which, anytime you tell a disabled community that they can be fixed, it's hugely problematic. But I think this instills a inherent or worsens a existing cruelty within a society to a point that it will threaten the world. Now, I have drawn the card for the Doomsday Clock. It is currently face down. I think after we go through our other innovations, we'll look at the Doomsday Clock and see how bad this existential threat to the world actually is and what, if anything, can be done about it. But I kind of think that's it. It enables us to double down on a cruelty that already exists in our society, which is our society does not consider disabled populations enough, and we are slowly wearing away at necessary protections for them, which means, hey, we're in trouble in a long-term scale.
Yeah, the world has become more cruel in this very specific way.
So our next innovation, moving on to co-pilots, who have not gotten a ton of play yet. I pull a 7 of diamonds to them. This is an economic change that creates a stark divide between economic classes. Well, folks, we already said it. These co-pilots really help you use your moon boots. If you don't have a co-pilot, you can't really go the same distances as people who have moon boots who do have a co-pilot. So suddenly, especially because there's no air travel anymore, if you are living with just a smartphone and not a co-pilot, you have to make a dozen jumps to the 2 or 3 jumps maybe that are necessary for people who do. So all of a sudden, things like international travel and whatnot are just cut off to a huge segment of the population. And that creates, you've got this divide between this traveling class who, a trip to Europe, thanks to moon boots, really is not that long. whatever we're making up for moon boots, they move much faster than planes. So much faster than planes.
Yeah.
So much farther than planes. You could go to Australia, in maybe a couple hours instead of like the nearly 20 to 15 hour flight it is right now. But only if you've got a co-pilot to assist you.
Yeah. I like that. I really like that.
All right. So, Jeff, we're pulling the next card here. This is another economic change caused by the moon boot. This is a 8. And 8 is going to be, this creates a new specialty profession.
Oh, it's gotta be There
are a lot of options here.
It's gotta be a moon boot navigator, right? Like it's gotta be a jump coordinator. Like,
okay. So we're saying that, like sort of like a travel agent almost. Like this is somebody who organizes your jumps.
Yes, I think that's where I want to. Well, actually, I want to lean in. I'm gonna take it in a different direction. I want to lean into the theme of these ideas being slowly broken down by capitalism and made worse. I want to throw in that there is a specifically. I can't imagine DoorDash doesn't get worse.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's not, you have to I think it is somewhere between like a delivery person and the sort of illicit underhand of this is like the thing that I keep coming back to because of the visual of like jumping and jumps being so central is very oh, now I don't. Hold on. I have to remember the name of it. It's very Mirror's Edge. Mirror's Edge is a visual that I get,
Love
right?
this.
Like jumping and flying is very essential. So I get the idea that like the profession is a go-getter. It is a person that is hired to go get a thing. Like it is like that, like the role of the delivery person, because it becomes so widespread where you can order something from the other side of the world and have it reliably get to you. Like that role becomes so much bigger and so much more expanded, where the new profession is like, there are just like, it changes, it becomes one part mail carrier, one part delivery person, you get the right go-getter and they will smuggle you whatever you need. Like it becomes this entire, like that courier job becomes this entire other, has to become, I mean, think about how important like air travel is to commerce, to connectivity, to the mail. All of these things have to be replaced by a person with a pair of moon boots and a co-pilot.
So this is the nightmare connection between logistics and delivery and the gig economy, specifically in that I think most large-scale logistics operations are entirely displaced. Like if a human being can hold an object, then it's probably going to get delivered by a go-getter, no matter where that object exists, especially because if you've got a co-pilot or whatever, like traveling to a Chinese factory or warehouse to pick up the product that's been freshly made and come back here, that's like, 12 hours, theoretically, instead of the actual like several days process that it would be right now. So that means that with these go-getters sort of exist in it's got to be the most popular job because it supports so much of society. Anybody can do it. And you don't know if you are going to be tasked with, well, you got to pick up this pizza and deliver it across town, or you need to go to Australia and get this like Etsy boot that somebody made and deliver it to somewhere in Dubuque. So like it is, you don't know how much your life could be disrupted at any moment. Your co-pilot could go off and be like, we have a delivery and you have to go to Mongolia now.
I And it being so widespread, like I'm picturing full cyberpunk here of like there's got to be that undercurrent of like you get the job, you accept it, and it's like, well, I need this diamond, go get it for me. Like there's a real potential of like if anybody can put in a request for a go-getter to go get a thing, like there's got to be an undercurrent of like there are the services that you go to for like quote-unquote legitimate jumps, and then there are the services that you go to when you want somebody to go get a thing, no questions asked.
Yeah, it's got to be like a premium side of the Go-Getter service of like clearly Go-Getter, a subsidiary, I think, of the Moon Boot Corporation, balloons to a point where they act as a nation on their own, they follow their own laws, and if you get a specific mission or if somebody pays enough for you to do a specific delivery, local laws, international laws do not apply to you because you are under the legal protection and obligation of the Go-Getter Corporation. So, you know, you are authorized to break into military compounds, whatever, what have you, because Go-Getter is going to take care of it. Now, you do still have to get the thing, and that is a risk and will be difficult to you. And it will affect your standing within the company if you don't get a 5-star rating on these missions. So really, boy, is it stressful to get one of those.
Hellscape.
But it does provide you, I will say, it pays decently if you take one of those
Pretty
jobs.
decently.
So you got to decide, do I want a year's work and a year's wages and possibly risk my life? Oh, so tough. Am I going to take this one?
Yeah.
But at least you won't be arrested for it, I guess. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Air is full of so many people that planes can't exist anymore. This is a king of spades. Spades are once again personal innovations for society. And a king of spades is directly or indirectly creates a new lifelike AI or genetically engineered beings. Ooh, okay. All right. I have to tie this to co-pilots.
Go for
it's
it. Tie
co-pilots, right?
It's got to be co-pilots, right?
You know, the algorithm that co-pilots are using to navigate has to be so robust that eventually they are like not just mimicking having full-on personalities, they are new people in their own right, fully self-aware beings. And it's because the sheer complexity of billions of people hopping in all directions all at once, some of them having co-pilots and some of them not having co-pilots, like the software just had to be so robust that, oops, we created life. And, you know, that's a whoopsie on our end for sure, but isn't your co-pilot so much more fun now? That they have feelings and can produce art and all the other lovely things that we associate with sapient beings. Co-pilots became self-aware because of how complicated travel is these days.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
I like that.
Let's move on. Ooh, okay. So once again, this is co-pilots. I pulled the 7 of Hearts. Hearts are social changes that are brought about by this, and this creates a nearly insurmountable generational divide. So let's talk about social media for a second. I mean,
Let's talk about it.
Jeff and I are of a generation that had a period of our lives where we didn't have social media, and you know, there's a very stark difference between life with social media and life prior to social media. Now you have the co-pilot. So many people have co-pilots. Co-pilots are very much, because they are a person, because they are self-aware beings, you are always with a friend and pretty much never alone. Like the idea of privacy is completely different in this world. You know, you think about all of the secret things and whatnot that you do in your own time online or what have you. There's just a younger generation that completely doesn't understand that because their co-pilot's always with them.
And it probably changes the nature of like of interpersonal intimacy. If there is somebody, if you inherently have someone with which you by default are sharing all of these things, it's going to stand to reason that it's going to change. Like, a generation is going to get used to, I share these things inherently with someone.
Yeah.
Like, these things, that's going to impact the way that people share things, because, well, I've already shared this with someone.
I kind of think this dovetails with our Lost Clone generation a little bit. I think the younger generations are really fighting for the rights of these clones because to them, a person is not thought of as just a singular entity. Like, they very much come to think of themselves, well, part of me is my co-pilot. I share everything with them.
Yeah, this is a relationship. This is a relationship that is so core to my being. So I love that, and I think that also dovetails nicely with our doomsday and creates like a scenario where more and more people are being marginalized and having their protections eroded, while also more and more people are finding like forceful communities and finding ways to connect with one another. Somehow we've just remade 2020, and I don't know how that happened, and I don't love it.
Well, at a certain point, this is kind of a slightly cyberpunk themed sci-fi thing. If you're going to create a cyberpunk dystopia, it's hard to avoid creating our current world. Because that's what we live in.
That is exactly what we
live in. A very boring cyberpunk dystopia. Unfortunately, nobody's dressing cool.
And nobody's flying around on moon boots.
Cool. I love this. I will add the last thing. I do kind of think the idea of polyamorous relationships are more common, because these days when younger folks are negotiating marriages, it's not just, oh, do I love my partner? It's, do I love my partner and their co-pilot, and does their co-pilot love me and my co-pilot? Because your co-pilot is a part of you. If that relationship does not work, doesn't matter if two people love each other. If their co-pilots can't get along, then it ain't gonna happen.
It also ingrains a level of relationship dynamics and negotiation from like a very early age, because the thing that I think I want to like canonically take off of the table is like if they've reached a point where the co-pilots are like fully sapient beings, I think they have to have the freedom to like terminate a contract and be like, we are parting ways, right? Like, they have to have that ability to like end a relationship, which means that when you look for a co-pilot, it is as much finding a relationship as it is like it is a business venture, which also implies that you are finding someone that you personally also connect with, and like there's a level of like building that relationship together there as well.
I kind of think to make that easier, there is probably, when you get a vessel for a co-pilot, or like when you were first given a co-pilot, there is an algorithmic thing that looks at you and your personality and matches you to a pre-existing AI that is just not in a co-pilot body yet.
Okay, yeah.
And assigns that co-pilot. So like you get, it's like semi-magical. You get a best friend for life that is always kind of going to be a good fit for you because you'll grow together and whatever. And that program sticks with you as it hops from body to body. So there's no weird sadness or like that. But there is the occasional co-pilot divorce, because this is a world where freedom is still a thing. And definitely the younger generations are what are pushing for that. Let's move on to our next societal change for moon boots. This is another spade, which is another. We're getting a lot of spades. This is another personal change, the Jack of Spades. And this standardizes an enhanced quality of life across many different social classes. Okay. Finally, something good.
This is good. That ties in really nicely to what I was saying, both about like the world that we're building, about like people coming together and finding a level of like social support with one another, and also
I'm back.
Okay.
My headphones are
Got it.
wireless. I just need to get something to drink or I was going to die.
You're good. So that ties in really nicely with what I was thinking about, like the idea that there are like groups of people coming together. It also ties really nicely into the idea that like the propagation of moon boots and the related technologies do a lot to like put things into workers' hands. And like it's the idea that like we have a lot more freedom to form communities with each other and tangibly like mutually aid and also directly like support one another. I think tying in with the Doomsday card, things probably are like it's probably just shy of, if not directly, like open combat and revolt a little bit. Like it is directly like it is something where like if you are, you know, you said that it is that like that the societal structures that enforce things like systematic ableism and marginalization are slowly like ramping up in severity is the Doomsday thing. So if it is that quite literally like if your employer like does something to harm you, right? Like if your employer is like, we have put in place like a tractor beam, but it is going to pull you down and potentially hurt you. If there is a union busting effort, right? Like if it is a group of people who are coming together and they try to do something to physically intimidate you, suddenly there's a lot more union representatives from across the world who can be in your parking lot by 2:30.
Yeah, and you know, we also have this younger generation coming up with a far more collectivist mindset.
That's what I'm picturing, is like that idea against a very capitalist so like corporate structure and societal structure, a very collectivist organized generation with a knowledge of like, hey, we can directly stand against this, and we have a technological tool that says that we don't have to try and coordinate that. We're not limited to protecting the people in our direct space. There's probably an entire class of, for lack of a better way to put it, like vigilante union organizers, right?
Yeah,
like,
these are super unions. Like we're tiptoeing around this. This is super unions. We have a villainous, entrenched like power structure that is just a more cartoonish version of what we have right now. But the answer to that is, like unintentionally, these technologies, the people who control these power structures, have created a generation of people with low-level superpowers who have the exact collectivist mindset to oppose this power.
That rips.
That's very good. That's very good. This is a very cartoony cyberpunk, and I am here for it. Which brings us to our next innovation, our next societal change vis-a-vis put together pods. That is the 10 of Hearts, which is another social change. This is erodes trust and certainty in what used to be a valued cultural institution. Ooh.
I mean, people used to value capitalism a whole lot.
So the put together, this is now the put together pods that has done this specifically.
I mean, honestly, like, let me think this through, because like that feels really good. It erodes trust. Oh, it's gotta be but it's gotta be a trusted institution, and the American healthcare system is a hellscape that is pretty much despised.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's a tough one. It's a tough one because there are so few institutions that we actually trust.
Yeah.
Maybe we can massage.
Let's massage it and say I want to lean into the two things that I really want to lean into. Are it erodes trust in the idea of I'm going to go hard on the healthcare system because it kind of directly impacts that of like. You have this technology that can like heal someone immediately. The second you introduce that, like insurance and healthcare providers and like a for-profit medicine system is going to try and exploit that. Is going to try and gatekeep it. Is going to try and paywall it. And I think that it like I don't think there's any way that you can look at we have a pod that can bring me back to life, and you're gonna tell me that I can't sit in the pod? Like, there is no way. I say that, but also I live in 2021. There's gonna be a way for somebody, but
somehow, some way, we manage to avoid supporting gatekeeping people away from the pod.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's
sure.
It is the idealist in me, James, is saying this is the one time that Twitter reply guys are not taking the devil's advocate stance.
I mean, okay, here's the thing, Jeff. Despite how upsetting and disheartening and frustrating our world is, we have to admit that at different points in our history, good things did happen.
This is correct.
Things did get better at some point. So conceivably, in the future, somehow things could also get better instead of worse. It feels unlikely. It feels far-fetched. But who knows?
We have to accept the possibility.
We rolled that critical success. We got it.
I think that it's simply like there is no way to look at this arrangement, right? That medical care is as simple as you put me to you lay me down to sleep, you put me in a comfortable pool of water, and in a couple hours I've completely recovered from all injuries. There's no way to look at that and go, well, yeah, we should gatekeep that. And I think that's the thing that kind of unifies people of like, there's simply no way that like that sort of that trust in the for-profit healthcare system is basically eroded to nothing because there's a better option and you can't keep me from that.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. So then we will move on to our, there are too many people zipping around in the sky. Let me make sure that I haven't somehow. Okay. Yeah. I pull the 8 of Hearts, creates fervent opposed factions which enter heated conflicts. Well, I think we've already kind of been hinting at that already. This is our super unions are clashing with the forces that control the world. I think like the X factor here is definitely the co-pilots in that in a highly technological society, you do kind of approach the point where individual and freedom and liberty is reduced because there is a greater dependence on technological infrastructure, which is controlled by oppressing classes. However, that part of that technological infrastructure is straight up just a sapient life form in its own right. And can start pushing back. So I think the co-pilots supporting the super unions, all of a sudden, like, people live quote unquote off the grid, not just because they are so mobile and whatnot, but because their co-pilot can really protect them in dangerous situations. So even though you have like these union busting strike militias, these super Pinkertons that are going after union efforts, the unions are mobile enough and technologically secure enough that they are on kind of even footing. And so there's just like this heated conflict that is ramping up in the background here.
I love it. I love it so much.
Then, I pulled the Ace of Diamonds for co-pilots. Diamonds are once again economic changes, and this helps create a boom of prosperity and economic mobility that benefits the majority of people. Now, this
actually, I wanted to throw out a pitch related to the co-pilots that popped into my head that I think is extremely cool and also ties into this nicely. Ties into like what you had just proposed around the last card, ties into this card. What if the co-pilots, there are individual co-pilots for every person, but it's also a hive mind situation. Like it is like I'm thinking of the movie, like I think it's impossible to thinking about like AI, like super intelligent AIs to not touch a little bit on the movie Her, but the idea of like there's a moment in, I guess spoilers for 15-year-old? When did that movie come out?
I hope it's not 15 years old, Jeff. I think that came out while we were both adults.
2013. Okay, it's 7 years. It's 8 years old. Okay.
Oh, that's still
it's still a lot longer than
not as young as you want it to be.
But there's a moment in that movie where where she says like, I'm in love with 147 other people worldwide who I've been dating for such and such amount of time. Like, I love the idea that every co-pilot is unique, and one of the reasons I think people might choose to not have the co-pilots, period, is at a certain point it's not even economic reasons, but it's that like the co-pilot is like an entity that creates smaller entities almost by budding, or like they are all connected to a larger core, right? They're connected to the internet, right? If we think of the internet as a living being, every co-pilot is like a branch off of that, but they're all kind of tied back into this central consciousness. And like, if you have a messy enough divorce with a co-pilot, you might just be like, I want out of the entire hive mind situation. You have the ability, you have the ability to just be like, I want, like, I can't, like, you like, it will always be one being trying to find a better fit for me. And eventually I might just not be interested in that. But the idea, but what I want to throw out is that hive mind is aligned, like, that's the thing that is aligned with the super union. So like, at a certain point, every single co-pilot, even the ones that like, they have their individual personalities, but there's some fundamental part of them that if you grill them is like, oh yeah, I'm pro union. Like it is simply a truth that is like bounded in every single one of them, because they connect back to this shared collective brain presence that they all seem to have.
Oh, Jeff, we've accidentally done something very fun and cool with this setting, in that we've talked about like the forces of the world, the entrenched power forces of the world, representing a kind of inherent cruelty that exists within our society. And we've created this neat little device in the co-pilot that a big part of its selling point as a device is that it is specialized and built around interpersonal connection. And because it ties back to this hive mind, this larger amorphous kind of socialized AI, at the core of that, at the core of all of that, there is a being that exists that is good and kind. So literally, this program that is designed to love looks at the inherent cruelty of our society and goes, no, sir, I stand firmly against that. And I will use my considerable power to oppose that where I can. So yeah, there is this horrible meme that we've created in entrenched power sources, and this lovely meme that we've created in this being that is
quite literally, now that we say it outright, quite literally a being of pure collectivism. And in retrospect, it makes total sense. It's the thing where like, it's the only direction it could go in is siding with this, because its entire being is absorbing all of these experiences. Its entire being is collective will and experience, and it says there are this many people suffering this badly. I cannot look away from that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, like, sort of inverse of our usual self-aware AI story, where it wakes up, it sees all the terror that humans put together and goes, instead of, oh, I must destroy humanity, it's, oh, I must help humanity however I can. Beautiful.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Love it.
So for our moon boots, we pull finally a club. This is security. No, this is actually political. A queen under the political domain says, this uplifts a new or previously non-influential political power onto the world stage. And this is moon boots specifically. I know we've tied so much together, but we do want to try and
moon boots
keep
specifically.
this somehow under moon boots.
Moon boots specifically. I feel very one note here, but tying into a previous moon boot card specifically. Imagine if tying into all of this, that courier class that we have like introduced, has so much raw power that like I don't think they can be ignored.
It's not even that. I think also that courier class doesn't identify with like a in-place national identity the way other people would, like because it's just a matter
people moving
of
from
like
place
a few
to place.
hours.
Like there is no,
Yeah, like home ownership is probably very much a thing of the past in this world anyway. Like most people are probably sleeping in hotels with very few possessions or whatnot behind them. So yeah, this large, usually pretty young courier class, they don't identify with like nations. They can go anywhere and live anywhere. And also eventually, because they necessarily have to have co-pilots, their best friend is always this super intelligent collectivist robot that will tell them, hey, if you just stopped, the wheels of this cruel society would come to a halt completely.
And it's and like that the experience of the go-getter has to be so unique that like there has to be like you would probably only really be able to be like this is the group that I politically most aligned with, is the people that like it has to, like, the experience of being that has to kind of transcend anything and become its own kind of like political identity, because like you said, like you are seeing so much, like your perspective is so rapidly shifted that it's like this is, and having so many people in that spot has to fundamentally change like how they see the world.
Yeah. Oh,
that rips.
Love
that
this.
Rips.
Absolutely love this. All right. So for our this is for the Put Together pod. We get the King of Hearts, a social change. Oh, wait. No, I think we already drew this one. Because that was, the extinction of the healthcare insurance system. Okay. This is a 4 of spades, which is another personal change, and that is creates a platform for people to explore and maintain a different sense of identity or self. Well, I think we've got that in the clones, right? Like you, God. Well, I mean, this is your card. I don't want to define your thing.
It's got to be a mix of the clones, and it's the Put Together pod specifically, and so it's this idea of like I could be some, like it's a very kind of like, imagine getting to, like, there's got to be like, I know we said originally there was sort of a horror element to like there's a person that you don't have a connection with, but like it is also a very kind of like there's a very particular like human experience thing of we, as the way that we perceive things. There's a sequence in Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics where he breaks down that the smiley face is like a universal symbol, and it is quite simply 2 dots, a half line, and a circle around it, because human beings are such like social animals that we see 2 dots, a line, and a circle, and we go, me. That is me. I see that is me. That is why cartooning is what it is. And the more something looks like you, there's that sense of like, I connect with this. It's why it's, and the idea of like being able to look at someone and go like, you are me, you are me, and you have my memories, my thing, there's a psycho horror element of that, of like, why don't we have a connection? But I also think, especially in a world that is so inclined to, in which it is so normalized to be introduced to a being, right? Like tying this a little bit back into the co-pilots as well, of like, this is a world that is so normalized to have a being kind of put in front of you and go, okay, we're going to start negotiating our relationship. I imagine there has to be a huge push of like, okay, there's a clone. Let's, and also imagine getting to talk to yourself and like imagine getting to talk to yourself and like truly not knowing what you were going to say. Like, there's a way of being like, okay, like, you understand this because you have my set of memories. You have seen and felt all of these things. Talk to me. And like, imagine somebody that knows you so well and has spent every single moment in your mind, who can look at you and go, are you doing that thing that you do? Right? Like, are you doing this thing? And go, oh, you know what, I am. Like, that level of like knowledge of self is so powerful.
Yeah. we're talking a lot about the idea of self being a thing that gets externalized in this society. There is also like the conception of, if you can suffer a truly traumatic injury that would result in death in a lot of other circumstances, but the put together pod can put you together back from that. Like theoretically, a put together pod could also make you younger and eventually remove like maladies that genetically cause death, like cancer or something like that. So it does, you I think, do approach a point where your concept of self is, well, how long do I exist, and in what forms do I exist, and how do I feel about all of that? Like, people decide like, well, how long do I need to live, and what is life in different circumstances?
Yeah.
I think that is just a thing that people in this society, especially the younger folks who grew up with these innovations, grapple with, that like we really don't have a way to conceive of here in our world today.
Yeah.
Love that.
Cool us out.
Let's draw the last. This is too many people zipping through the air. This is a 6 of spades, which once again is a personal innovation. And that is, this creates a new standard for the experience of adulthood. I kind of think that we talk about the decentralized lifestyle of the gig economy and all of this stuff. I think as soon as you can have moon boots and a co-pilot, you kind of are an adult, and you're an adult with limitations, with so few limitations on what you are capable of. Because like, go, like we said, like traveling to Canada is like a 15-minute trip or whatever. You're not bound by so many practical limitations that we have in our society. So like movement is adulthood. As soon as you can decide where to move and how to move, you're an adult.
Yeah.
And like, you still have connections to your family and parental units, but you're not bound to them in the same way. Like, kind of anybody can become a go-getter in a certain sense. So like, if you have parents that don't support you or reject you in some way, like, it kind of is not as damaging as it would be in our world, because like, you can build a life for yourself, and you pretty much, except rare circumstances, always have your co-pilot. So yeah, I think adulthood is just the ability to move freely, and that like can come much earlier, kind of depending on what your home life is like.
I love that.
All right. So now we get the final societal change card. This is, of course, again with co-pilots. This is a social change, the 4 of Hearts. This creates a new slang, language, or ways of understanding the world. So people and their co-pilots, obviously, the young folks are going to, have their memes and whatnot, but you are really, from a very young age, if not birth, paired with a co-pilot who is like algorithmically designed to be your buddy, and probably plays a significant part in raising you. I kind of think there is a new international language that the co-pilots speak and whatnot, because, it's efficient. If you have a universal international language, then it's super, super easy to just speak that when you are go-getting around the world and whatnot. So yeah, co-pilots develop a language that, has several different forms. I think co-pilots, because they are collectivist beings, they are attuned and catering to disabilities in ways. So, there is a oral version of it. There is a sign version of it, and it breaks down a lot of barriers. Like, older people do still have a language barrier, but almost no one in younger generations experiences a language barrier because of this.
Love it.
All right, Jeff, it's time to
Let's look at our doomsday card.
So when you break the circle and you have a card that plays into your doomsday clock, you draw a second card to see how severe this doomsday clock is. I flip it over and oof, this is okay. So this is actually not as bad as I thought.
Great noises.
So I did flip over the 2 of hearts, which is an even result, which on an even result, it says the apocalypse can be averted only with immediate and decisive action. PCs have days to make a difference. So I kind of think this is, there is a, I think the cruel controlling forces of the world have realized that the centralized hive mind of the co-pilots represents an existential threat to the forces of toxic capitalism. So of course they're going to take action to destroy it. These plans have to be very precise and they have to be very careful because you're going up against the co-pilots, which are this, extremely capable force. They're connected to the super unions. If they find out about this,
the hell is coming down.
I kind of think this game centers around people who have divorced from the co-pilots, who find out that this is going to happen. These are people who have had these deeply intimate relationships and ultimately decided that they cannot love this entity, no matter what. But they're also the only people that could be kind of entrusted with the information that people would need to, attack this entity and potentially destroy it. So I kind of feel like the game centers around you are this person. You know that the cruel forces of the world are trying to destroy this thing, and there's a deep attachment wound, emotional scar that you have, but you have to decide if that is worth the price of the world.
That is beautiful. What the game that I see coming out of this is, if you have days, if you have moments to act to stop the apocalypse, I think it has to be if you have days to act, it's got to be that you are the one sort of super union cell that has the ability to go the other way of these the way I picture it is there are high end assassins who have been put into a place that they are going to take this thing down. They know how to do it. There is not time. Even in this world where everyone is connected, where there's this overwhelming sense, where travel is somewhat negligible, it still takes time. Organizing things still takes time, right? We have it's not like everyone is going to get the word immediately and know where to meet. Organizing a gigantic counter resistance effort is impossible, but we could get 4 people.
Yeah.
And I think this is a game about the 4 people, the one cell of a super union, aided by the co-pilots, which at this point you got to think with a hive mind situation, if the hive mind is taken down, everything goes down. So it's not even really the co-pilots, there's a level of individuality, but that base level, we have to protect the core. You're almost there's a degree in which those people are going to be on their own, because the co-pilots have to focus on protection. They can't focus on neutralizing the threat, because if you fail, they have to focus on we have to make sure that that our hive mind survives.
Yeah. So
it's four people staring down the apocalypse, staring down the oppressive forces that have ruined the world, and standing at the precipice of a world that is better. And having to stop the old world from killing the better world in its tracks.
I think that's great.
And that's game.
That's game.
We did it.
We did it, yeah, and
That rips.
That's Time to Face the Strange. I love that the world that we came away with. I've played this game now 3 times with people as part of these interviews, and the first one was like deadly serious and very much grounded in reality. The second time was really cartoonish and satirical, and this one played a little bit in both worlds, which I do truly love.
I think that I think you know me. You've listened to enough AMFC that you know that one of my favorite things in this or any world is, hey, what if we took a really silly idea and just played it as straight as we can? What if we took the silliest possible thing and made it deathly serious?
Yeah, I love it. So there we have it. That's the game. This book is available right now wherever books are sold. This is just one of the exercises in this book. Some of the exercises in this book, like Time to Face the Strange, can be done with a partner. A lot of them can be done alone and individually. And, you can make your own fun that way. But, this takes the act of world building, if that's something that interests you, but you often find yourself with choice paralysis and don't know which direction to move. This book is here to be your co-pilot, to help nudge you in the direction to make this easier and more fun. And like I said, can be found wherever books are sold. You can find it at bit.ly/ultimate world building. I hope you check it out and I hope you have fun with it.
All right. Well, thanks, James. Is there anything else you want to plug before I throw it over to me in the future?
Of course. Well, before we turn to the future, Jeff, I do want to point out that if you like my role playing, you can always find me on One Shot, a podcast where, very similar to Party of One, we play a multitude of role playing games and try to explore the boundaries of the different styles of role play. The only difference is we typically have more than 2 people on. And you can also find me on campaign Skyjacks, which is an ongoing campaign in an anti-colonial world about sky pirates with a setting inspired by the music of the Decemberists. It's super fun, and I'm super proud of it. You can check out those wherever you get your podcast. And of course, if you just want to talk to me, the best place to find me is on Twitter at OneShotRPG.
Love it. Well, thanks, James. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a delight. And for now, I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me. And thanks again to James for coming on to the show. That game was absolutely incredible. I loved every minute of it. I loved building this world. I loved building this story. What a fun game. Just what a fun game. Be sure to follow James on Twitter at OneShotRPG. Be sure to check the show notes for links to One Shot, Campaign Skyjacks, and the Ultimate RPG Game Master's World Building Guide. Then, head on back to Twitter, follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast. Join our Discord at bit.ly/partyofonediscord. Head to our merch store at bit.ly/partyofonemerch. Check out All My Fantasy Children. If you enjoyed the content of this episode, which is 2 people sitting down and building a world together, check out AMFC. It is a character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast powered by you. Every week, my best friend Aaron Catano Size and I take a listener-submitted prompt. We spin it into an original fantasy character, and we populate a shared universe one story at a time. New episodes drop Friday-ish at oneshotpodcast.com. The other way that you can support this show, as well as AMFC and all the other things that I create in a given month, is by supporting this show on Patreon at patreon.com/JeffStormer. Patrons get access to bonus audio, early access to things. It's great. You can support the show financially at patreon.com/JeffStormer, or if you'd like to make a one-time donation, ko-fi.com/JeffStormer. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran, featuring the D&D Sluggers, and the Party of One logo is by Evan Rowland. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates, coming onto the show as a guest, or about press coverage of the show, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And, I think that's honestly about it. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.